Employees retire, we set them free, shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.
Hello and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I am your host, Kim Miller-Hershon. I am here with my guest, Giorgio Natali, and I'm going to let him introduce himself to you. I think you're going to be delighted by him and what he has to say today. Giorgio?
Kim, you are setting very high expectation. First of all, I want to say that thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. I still remember the first conversation we had, and I couldn't wait more than having another one. I'm Giorgio Natali. I am head of software engineering with a special focus on AI and ethics. I am here representing myself, not any of the company I work for or any of the company I contract for. But my passion is bridging the gaps between the need of a more effective workforce that can be achieved also through AI. I'm emphasizing the also, but doing this through ethic, digital dignity, and of course, data sovereignty. In my career, and you can search for me on LinkedIn, I had the opportunities to work at Mozilla, Amazon, Capital One, all corporates that in one way or another, now think about the different ages in which I've been there, focus on privacy, security, focused on data sovereignty, not too much on the digital dignity because it's a new concept, not too much on data sovereignty because it's an emerging concept given all the boundaries of AI. Passionate about helping the community, so feel free to reach out to me at any time, whatever question you have. If possible, don't try to sell me everything on LinkedIn, but I would love to help anyone that I can.
So, say a little bit more about digital dignity because I think that is not a known concept.
Digital dignity can be defined through different angles.
Okay.
So, the first one is that you own your data, you own your consent, because you are getting empowered to have complete control over the data that gets shared about you into whatever system. At the same time, if you look at still at data, but from a different angle, it's having an equitable access and usage to this data. Why these data should be accessed by anyone or any vendor? Think about your cookie, right? When you accept all. And I authorize these 150 vendors of marketing about me. Why you are doing that? Why this is not made clear? The access should be equitable and for everybody. The design of any system should be human-centered, where this means that not only the UI is human-centered, the UX, but the usage of the data across whatever experience should think about you and not just about data extraction and efficiency. To an extreme, think about how many systems we have right now that can generate images. These images are built on top of a database or a data set of images that have been captured all over the world. There are plenty of legislation and litigations now about how to manage the rights of acquiring this information, but think about populations that are underserved. Think about a tribe in whatever part of the world that doesn't have neither a concept or an understanding about internet, and they have their pictures taken by whoever that is a digital device, and then get shared and became part of generating new images. This is another ethical consideration we should ask when we build a system and we want to keep digital dignity by default. How we are protecting minorities that are not aware of the digital power and the digital benefit and the digital revenues that their content can generate.
So interesting. And feels like it's not a conversation that I think is happening very publicly. I think mainstream media, they either want to fearmonger, right, around you need to protect your privacy. I actually had somebody say to me this week, you need to check your settings on LinkedIn because they changed their policies and now everybody can have access to your data. which I thought actually was interesting because I was like, I'm on LinkedIn so people can find me. So if AI wants to index my LinkedIn profile, I'm actually okay with that. But I think this is a different concept, I think. And I'm so happy that you're here talking about it.
Thanks. And you are right about the usage of social media. Most of people use social media to be reachable, others just to share their frustration.
Mhm.
In general, what is concerning about social media is that if you look at the privacy policies and you really want to dig into it, I think you need a few weeks of
Yeah.
studying.
And probably an attorney.
Yes, but you can basically backfill a little bit of the attorney knowledge
Right.
through Gen AI and through any LLM, but still, right? You need a lot of time to interpret it. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember that a study done from PhD students in UK about how long would it take to really understand the privacy policies of Google Nest would be
Mm.
around 5 weeks for an attorney.
And they do it that way so that they can do a lot of what they want. Or it's this, if you don't have to consent to it, but then you can't use the thing. There's no in between. There's no, which is
Very easy to say. When something is free, you are the product.
right. There you go. I have a mentor that used to say business people that use Gmail, like mine is at kimmillerhershon.com, right?
Yes, like instead of having a workspace.
Right, exactly. That you are giving Google free advertising, right? Like instead of advertising your own business, you're actually advertising Google. It's an interesting concept. All right, my friend, we're already deep in the content here, but you still do not get away without answering my random question.
Sure.
So, my random question for you is if someone, not me, but someone gave you $1,000 and said you have to spend it on yourself, what would you do with it?
I would buy right away a second Technics 1200 that is a turntable
Oh, oh.
to complete my DJ console, on which I already have one, plus the digital assets to have a 4 channels, fully flashed console. But I'm getting more and more intrigued in mixing vinyls because with digital music, you have an understanding of how the music will flow. You have a spectrum that you can analyze. With a vinyl, and it's black, right? It's like jumping into a black hole and you don't know anything unless you know very well that song. And it's impossible to know all these songs. So this ambiguity and
Mm.
this extremely unpredictable, right? Flow of the music, it's fascinating me more than ever at this point in time.
Oh, I love that. And so, what do you do? Is this just for your own pleasure? Are you DJing for other people?
I DJ also for others. If it's a whatever charitable event, I DJ for free. When there is a friend that throw out a party or whatever, I just DJ for free. And sometimes I DJ also for public events. But again, if there is something that is happening that is helping the community, I play for very cheap money. It's not my job. It's my just my pleasure of sharing a music journey, a sonic
Uh-huh.
journey with others.
I love that. So actually you're going to laugh at me. So actually I'm going to a wedding. This actually doesn't have to do with music, but it does have to do with DJing, right? I don't know if they're going to have a DJ or a band, but I love to dance. But here is the funny thing. Like I typically take classes, like I'm a big Zumba person and all kinds of things. Somebody is telling you what to do and you're following, right? So actually last night, I kid you not, was on YouTube looking up dance moves. What are my dance moves that I can have at the party? But here is the funny thing. There's all these professional dancers who put up these like videos saying, okay, here are 4 dance moves that you can use at when you're on the dance floor, like at a club. And here's the funniest thing. Like they are like, you can body roll. And I am like, these are not things that regular people can do. without looking. My kids would literally be like, Mom, no, please don't, no. So I thought it was actually really very, very funny. But
It is. And I would love to have more dancers because dancers are fantastic at the vibe for a DJ, right? When
yeah,
as one head that start moving like this, you say, oh, yeah, I got it. And
yeah,
so the dancer is wow, wow, we got it.
yeah.
We got it.
Yeah, I think the thing is that I don't really have the moves, although I will say, after doing Zumba, and I do Zumba like 4 days a week at least.
Wow.
So after doing that for now a number of years, like I do feel, I don't know that I look any better, but I feel more comfortable. Like when I'm doing Zumba, I really don't care what anybody thinks because it just makes me feel so good. But I think for going out on the dance floor, I'm a little limited in my ability to translate my Zumba into like free form movement. But I do it anyway. I just like to feel a little more sure of myself.
I don't believe so. I think that you are a fantastic dancer. At least that's what is coming through. And you know why? Because you are putting yourself on the stage, expressing yourself. And that's
There
the
you go.
point, right? Being ourselves.
There you go. All right, that was very fun, very unexpected. I love that. All right, what is one piece of conventional wisdom that earlier in your career, and I do actually think it's quite interesting because although I don't know where you were at the beginning of your career, but you have worked for a lot of Fortune 500, Fortune 100, like corporate environments, right? And so I do think that there is a lot of this is the way you succeed here, right? And so I'm curious what you thought when you were younger and what do you think now?
I'll split the answer in two sections. One is when I was a business owner, and one when I became an
Ah,
employee.
okay.
So when I was a business owner back in early 2000, actually, maybe even a little bit earlier, in Italy and in Europe, the main concept was when you have a company that is fully established, you are successful. Then you are an
Mm,
entrepreneur. And I did that and I scaled it, but the scaling part is fine. But all the bureaucracy that I had to absorb to build a company with limited liability and multiple business partner was huge to the point that at some point I was so disinterested that my other business partner, that is my wife, and we became wife and husband before opening the company together, was taking part of all of that. And I didn't want her to do any of that. So over there, the advice of you need a company to succeed. You need a whatever. No, it's not true. You need a passion to succeed. When I moved then into the US after closing this business, after I think 14 years of successful business, shutting it down, giving the time to every single of the 20 plus employees to find a new job, a new thing. So not an abrupt close of our business. I moved into the US. And after a few months, I get the advice that it's very important to be loved by the people that you work with. And I did it to too much of an extreme, but I realized it very early, maybe after 2 years of doing it, that at the end of the day, management is not a popularity contest. So you have to make tough decisions. Now,
yeah.
the problem is that you have to be in a company that is capable of accepting you in unpopular decisions, sometimes with within the interest of the company itself. Because if you work in a company, and I don't like to say for a company, you want to be an owner. You want to feel an ownership, right? So you want the company to succeed. And sometimes you have to make uncomfortable decisions that are not popular. Think a little bit about in your family, right? If you have kids, they will never happy all the time with your decisions, but it's the right thing to do. Maybe at the time, maybe in 10 years or in 2 years can be reviewed and it's not the right decision, but at the time was sounding pretty good. So being accepted by your coworkers, it's important. Being popular, it's way less.
You know what? The way that I typically phrase that when I'm coaching is It's important to be friendly, not everybody's friend.
Absolutely. And this is being friendly. It's essential to be successful because if people knows that they can speak friendly with you, they will tell you the good things and the bad things,
Right.
and you can adjust. So it's very important to be friendly, open-minded, accept feedback, being inclusive. These are all good things, but you don't have to be afraid, sorry, neither to make a tough call, neither to say something to somebody with the interest of improving them. If you see something that is
Right.
impacting their ability to succeed, just call it out. They might be
Right.
pissed off for 20 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever, but you are doing something for them.
And I would go so far as to say, because this also comes up a lot, right? I think a lot of people have a difficult time, and I certainly do too, right? Have a difficult time sometimes giving hard feedback, firing somebody that you like as a person, but is not performing the job in the way that is required. I think, though, the way that I often frame it is that as a manager and as a leader, one of the most important things that you need to do, like your roles as a manager, is to develop people's careers and skill sets. So if you're not willing to give them feedback, you're actually failing at one of the most important things that you can do. So it's really important to, just like going to the gym and lifting weights, it's practice, right? Actually, being a DJ, right? You don't just get the equipment and all of a sudden you're a DJ. It takes practice. And so I would say giving feedback also takes practice. But it is actually one of the most important jobs that you have as a manager.
One of my favorite book, it's Radical Candor. Radical Candor has a very pretty clear statement that says to challenge directly and care personally about people. So when you challenge them, and challenging can be also giving them feedback in a very empathetic way, respecting them, showing what is the business impact of an action rather than of saying, "Oh, you made me piss it off," or things like that. That's
Mhm.
personal, right? It's wrong. Then, if you practice that and you show that, I'm telling you this because this and that, you motivate with something that is relatable for them.
Right.
And
And I think the other piece of what you're saying, it's relatable as long as it's specific.
yes,
I think how and what you do to give feedback is an important piece of the entire puzzle. And getting good at it is really an important skill set for a manager. Then again, Giorgio, if everybody was good at it, I wouldn't have a job. So it's good that people aren't good at it.
I agree with you. I agree with you. One little trick, and then we can move wherever you want, that I use just to emphasize the importance of what you say is that I keep a spreadsheet where I track situation, business impact of anything that I have to share as a feedback to peers,
Uh-huh.
people that I support, whatever. And doing this timely, not 1 week after, it's so important. Makes such a difference.
Right. Yes. I want to just emphasize what you are saying about timeliness. Giving yourself a deadline saying no longer than 1 week after this happens, I will give this feedback, I think is a fabulous rule to set up for yourself. And the fact that you're actually tracking it, I think really helps you stay accountable to doing it. So maybe that's a tip. When it comes up, you got to put it on your calendar. One last thing that I do want to say, it's this is my little, I'm putting my coaching hat on for a second, is to also really know who it is that you're talking to. So if you know that, and especially, right, you're a software engineer, we know typically that engineers are process people. right? They're analytical, they're process, they tend to be detail oriented. You should bake in to that feedback loop process an opportunity for them to process what you are saying and then come back to you with a response. That knowing who your audience is and saying, hey, listen, we can talk about this now. This is the feedback. Let's set up a follow up meeting tomorrow, though, right? And then you tell me what works for you so that you're really allowing them to be thoughtful about their response. They may need some time just to go through whatever feels they have and then come back with an action plan.
I completely agree with you. Sometimes people ask me, what is the secret sauce to talk with everybody? Or what is the communication style that you should use to work with everybody? And my answer is, there is not a single communication style that works with everybody.
That's
You have
right.
to be capable of understanding what matters for every single person. And
Yeah,
if you can, and don't assume it, try to understand it. So it's different. Ask questions, have conversation, and so on. And then use what matters to them to
that's
convey
right.
any message that you have. And you agree, you are absolutely right. Some people need time to process. Some people need to react to the feedback right now. So balance, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Want to say something? No, okay, take your time. We'll talk next week or we'll talk tomorrow. My
right.
calendar is fully open. So adapt. I understand this has some limits, meaning you can't do this for 100 people.
Right.
That's why you have most likely part of your team or your organization, other managers that then can cascade things. That's
Right.
why these organizations are in place. But if you do it well with people that work directly closely to you, understanding their skills, their strength, and their communication
That's right.
challenges or communication habits, then you will succeed.
Right.
Then popularity will come, but it's not
Right.
anymore the goal.
Yeah, I will say with my team, and this really is probably feels like one of the biggest accomplishments that I think I have had as a boss, which is my team begs for feedback. They're like, say more, tell me more. How can I do this better? Times when I'm sorry that I messed this up. We're big on taking responsibility. But here's the other thing is that when I mess up or when I snap, when I'm irritated, I am also, you didn't deserve that. That actually wasn't about you. I apologize. Please forgive me. And it's sincere, right? I guess in some ways you are a role model, but also too, I would never want to call privilege. Like I'm the boss, I can just behave however I want to behave, but here's the standard in which you need to behave. Yeah,
I was in a conversation with a person that is now starting to be part of my team a few days ago. Wonderful person that I support now. And we were exactly talking about this word, boss. And I told her, don't call me a boss. And she told me, yeah, let me do this thing. I'll call you boss now and then we'll forget about it. Because we have to accept that you are my boss, but I will never treat you as a boss. How does it sound? See, that sounds beautiful and wonderful. That's what I wanted because I don't want people to treat me like, oh, okay, he's scrutinizing my work. No, I'm observing your work. I'm working with you to accelerate your growth if you're interested, or to support you to be successful in what you do. So that's why I'm so allergic to the word boss. But I also realized that a few years ago that everybody is a boss. No
yeah.
matter how high you go into the food chain, you always have a boss.
You always have a boss. And I think there are standards, and people need to know what we get back to that friendly versus friend, right? There are times when people need to toe the line with you, when I don't know that they need to be deferential, but they certainly need to understand what good performance looks like, what great performance looks like, whatever other standards you set for your team, and they need to meet it or exceed those. I do think that is also important to be super clear about what that is. Because people can't meet an expectation that they can't either know or understand. All right, you are clearly a successful business person. You have owned your own business and you have also worked in corporate America. What are the things that you still struggle with?
Corporates are slow and startups are not well organized. That's one thing that I'm struggling with. I think that it's hard to find the right balance between a startup that can be well organized without over indexing on process
Right.
and a corporate that can make very visible internally and externally the impact that each person is doing, is making, so that you can achieve a faster working environment. I think it's my strength and weakness. Strength because I observed the problem and I tend to solve it. So my personality, I'm a problem solver. So if I see a problem, whatever it is, I try to say, wow, that's fantastic. Ah, yes. Sometimes when you are in a corporate and you want to accelerate, you encounter resistance that is endemic into the corporate environment, make you really very unpopular. At the same time, when in a startup, you advise or you advocate for having a clear understanding of what is going on, or a bare minimum process to determine what is the next right thing versus we'll learn along the way. That is a fantastic approach, don't get me wrong, but to be framed some way, then you can become again unpopular. And then it's when the advice that I gave you a little bit, a few minutes ago, management is not a popularity contest, have to put on. But there are risks, because if you are a strong believer, as I am, that management is not a popularity contest, you might find yourself fired simply because you were achieving or overachieving your results.
Oh, isn't that an interesting idea?
It's more than an idea. I think that I had an experience that is very close to that. Overachieving instead of rewarding me.
Wow.
And then after questioning myself about if I was doing the right thing, then another thought kicked in. You have to be yourself. Corporates, companies, startups, it's full of them, right? You have to find the one that you fit the best with to be yourself.
Right. So I did the opposite path of you, which is I worked at companies. I could never find the right fit for me, right? I don't think I ever overachieved and got fired, but I certainly did question things and get fired. And I am also like you, like I like things to move. And I was just in companies that that's just not how they operated. And I think the other thing that they didn't love, now these were not huge companies because that's a different story, but why do we do this like this? Which I think I could have been more skillful at coming out of curiosity. So I think I didn't maybe give the feedback or find the right form for the feedback. I think that was a learning for me. I think though that they also were not places that were inviting feedback.
Yes, there are. Yeah, there are many of them.
And so for me, having my own business was actually a much better solution for who I am. And I think that's why when I said I feel really accomplished or proud of myself as, if we don't like the word boss, as the leader of my company, because I think I get to be the kind of leader that I wish I had. And that feels very meaningful to me.
I truly can see every single word that you just said because one of the things that I'm also considering is to start again my own business. Simply because I like to see things moving. I love to make mistakes because through mistakes you learn. Of course, you cannot always do only mistake, right? It's a balance. Yeah, this is part of the game. And maybe in the future I will open again my business as I've done in the past, and we'll see how it will look like. And for sure, then we'll see.
Okay, stay tuned. All right. So if you could rewrite the rule book on leadership, what's one outdated belief that you would throw away and what would you replace it with?
This is hard to answer because there are many different rule books, right, on leadership, and every single company has its own. So there are a variety of interpretations. But in general, one thing that I would rewrite immediately is how HR work for companies and employees.
Say
I
more about that. Yeah.
Yes, I do think that unless very few exception, and I will not mention the name, but I can count on my end few exception that I found in my career, that HR always protected the interest of the company, forgetting that they should be the mediator between the interest of the company and the human being that is on the other side. Unfortunately, what is wrong, it's their own title, human resources. I'm sorry, but these two words are too much in contrast. If you are human, you're not a resource. And if you are a resource, you're not a human. So it's the contrast between human and resources that is completely wrong, right? So if I'm treated as a resource, I shouldn't give my time for real to the company. I should give only a limited portion of my life. I shouldn't be passionate about my work. I shouldn't do anything. But we want people that is passionate. We want people that love their work, that they truly recognize themselves in a mission. So at that point, you don't want any more resources. So let's remove these resources from the human support, human management, whatever. Let's find a better name and let's
Right.
break that rule. And let's have them as an intermediate between the main interest of the companies. Of course, business is business, but people is people.
And what do you think, though, this idea of chief people officer?
It's going into that direction, but then it depends how they operationalize. Because having a wonderful title, chief people officer, doesn't mean anything if on the ground your managers, your people, business partners are treating people as a resource. So
Right.
think simply about the layoff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know
Layoff,
what's really interesting is that one of my best, I think, referral sources in terms of business for me in smaller companies tends to be outsourced HR because they're very clear they don't want to do the coaching and the training. They want to do more of the compliance and so forth. So those are good people for me. When people ask me for bigger companies, who brings you in, I can guarantee you not one time has it ever been human resources, ever, not once. I think the idea of coaching, if it's somebody else's idea and they have to just coordinate it, they will do that, but they are not fans of the work I think that I do.
yeah. So I don't want to create an impression that I am against everybody in human resources. But again, I rarely find, and I found a few
Mhm.
people that I'm still friend a long time about the person.
Right.
They are the ones that also knock on your door when you are want to promote somebody or you want to transition from one role to another. That's really being passionate about the human behind some work. Now, if many others simply work like, oh, we have to fire 5%, we have to fire 10% this year, right? Sure. Who cares if they are producing, right? No, it's a company mandate. So now, okay, then you are failing because you're not explaining that there might be exceptions. Not everything is the same. And think simply about the layoff, right? Oh, tomorrow your computer, your laptop doesn't work anymore. Is this respectful? I don't think so. No matter what exit package you give me, it doesn't matter. Human component. And neither having a conversation like, hey, you are in this 300 people meeting because you are fired, or a one-on-one conversation that fire one after the other. That's not okay. People
Yeah.
tend to accept bad news if you explain them, if you are an empathetic person. That's what I would change.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's really interesting. I think the human and the resources piece is a really, I've never heard that before. I think that is a really interesting piece. It also reminds me, like I've had friends who, or not friends, but clients who work in large companies where they're being sponsored for their H-1B visa. When they're going through the green card process and so forth, I just always want to remind them. So they have attorneys from the company that are helping them file all the forms and go through the process. And my advice to them always is get your own counsel to look over things because those lawyers are hired by the company to look out for the company's interest. So at any point, if you being a resource to them does not align, they're not looking out for you. That's not their job. And they may be really nice people, right? There's HR people tend to be really like wonderful people. Well, a lot of them got into it because they love people. But you should never misunderstand that and who pays the bills and what their interests are. So,
Yes.
yeah, interesting. All right. What's one unconventional habit or mindset that's helped you grow your career?
So I think that I can call unconventional an habit that I developed maybe a couple of years ago. Now I read papers, right? Not digital. I really buy the book and I read it in the night.
You are quite the rebel.
I am the rebel after having built the Kindle, right? And the rendering engine for the Kindle. I'm not against any digital. I love also digital. It's fast. It's usually getting you timely the information that you need. But the beauty of reading a book that is completely unrelated to your job, but still that has some ethical consideration, it's very important. In the past 3 months, I read 2 books about the Shoah, the Holocaust, and one, Bus 57, I recommend to everybody. I'm finishing the new chapters. It is talking about a story of a transgender that just for fun got light on fire while they were sleeping on a bus. But also the intention of the kids was not to hurt, just to do a kid stupid thing, turn it out in a big drama. And it's based on a real story. So the unconventional aspect of it is that I'm not reading about AI. I'm not reading about my deep interest in machine learning, in data, in software architectures, on people leadership principles, but I'm developing an ethic aspect that is, I think, way more important. My next book, maybe this is will be about Gaza and what is happening over there. I bought 3 books, one written from an Israeli, one from a Palestinian, and a third one that is named Side by Side, as 4 authors, 2 Israeli and 2 Palestinians, that tell the same story, the same aspect of the same story. I want to develop an understanding of above and beyond what I have now, of the historical roots for this conflict. And I think this is helping me to be more ethical in the way I work, more capable of developing a wider empathy with everybody, right? And accepting wider different perspective, being not judgmental. I already not judgmental. I don't like to judge people. I don't like to be judged. Oh, okay. I don't mind if people judge me. I don't care. But I know that for others can be a very impactful thing, being judged. So I'm not judgmental. And I want to keep expanding these skills. This is my unconventional habit, the most recent one. In the past, I don't know if you would believe it, when I was still writing code and solving complex problems, when I was getting stuck, I was taking a nap.
That actually makes perfect sense to me because I think that when you let your mind rest, when you ask yourself a problem, sometimes I do that. I'll ask myself a question right before I go to bed and not to think about it, but to just let my unconscious mind just noodle on it. And you wake up in the morning and it's just there.
That's a tiny bit different. When I was owning my own company and I had two offices, one in Rome, one in Tuscany. The one in Tuscany was very small. A lot of time was me, my wife, and one of our executive assistant. When the executive assistant was not around, I was literally leaving my laptop, going on a couch, snoring for 15, 20, 25 minutes with my wife making fun of me. You are sleeping and me answering while snoring. No, I'm thinking. And at the beginning, she thought that he's making fun of me, doesn't realize what he's saying. And just waking up at some point, say, I got it. And going straight to the laptop like I never slept and
Done.
coding it.
Yeah.
So that was a very unconventional habit, I think, but
Yeah.
worked for me.
And one of the things is too, is that especially when you are doing concentrating, whatever kind of work you do, I mean, coding, obviously, you have to be accurate, right? If you're, but there's a lot of places where we need to be accurate. I think one of the best things that you can do is get up and walk away from it. We have such a tendency to stay heads down way beyond when it's really healthy to do that. Yeah, so I actually, that's very funny, but I do actually think that that makes sense to me. All right, last question. You're an accomplished guy. When it's a two-part question. If you don't like, I don't know, these days it feels like imposter syndrome. That word has been bandied about so much that it seems like it's more jargony sometimes than specific. So if you're going to feel self-doubt, when is that going to creep up for you? And what do you do about it? What tips do you have for people to deal with that?
So the imposter syndrome is part of my career. Also, in the most recent role that I started at the second day, I found myself in a meeting and say, "Oh, holy cow, what I'm doing here, why I'm here, right? Why they have all these expectations about me?" And my secret to go after it, it's don't be scared, just be a learner. Because when you have this attitude, at the end of the day, you don't overstate any opinion, but you are humble on your opinions. People accept humble opinions, they help you. And second, it gives you time to understand the context in which you are moving.
Right.
Because it's not that you are not an expert in the field, it's that you are not expert in the field in that context. And the
Right.
context requires a little bit of time to be built.
So it sounds like even contextualizing the fact that you don't have context. And probably the worst thing to do is to walk in and be a know it all. To take up a
Yes.
lot of space is probably not the best thing. You know what, the other thing, and I'm curious what you think about this. The other thing that I always think is a great thing to do when you're feeling a little bit of self doubt is ask a better question. Because I think when somebody asks really good questions and people get to talk more, they not only you get yourself on steadier ground, but here's the funniest thing. I have had this happen before where I've not said anything. All I have done is just ask questions and draw things out of people. And they'll walk away and they're like, that was such a great conversation. Thank you so much. And you're like, okay.
Yes. People, so if you have a genuine interest in what they are doing, they love the conversation and you
Yeah.
learn. In a couple of companies, I've been named the questionologist because I have always a lot of questions. I think it's important. Show interest and show an approach to business that is humble and ready to learn new things.
Yeah. And oh, you know what? I was going to swear. I won't swear on the air here, but what I will say is put your frickin' phone down, right? If you want to have a meaningful conversation with somebody, turn your Slack off or your Discord off or your Teams off or whatever it is that your chat is. Don't have notifications going across your screen. And for God's sakes, put the phone down. And I think when we talk about, I think one of the incredible benefits of just in a very sort of generative AI and just a very practical way is all of the note takers that we have these days. And in that way, they are so effective for you to be able to actually be a much more active listener
Yes.
in a conversation. I actually just, I'm a big fan of when I'm online, which, as a lot of us are, is the majority of my day, in using some AI tools that are baked into Zoom and so forth. But I also have a little device that I take for in person meetings that does the exact same thing for me. And it's just so marvelous.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It keeps you away from the digital hub that we have in front of us. For Italian, it's easy, right? We move our hands so much when we speak, so we can do that.
There you go. Yep. Yeah. We would out ourselves if we were holding our, yes, you and I both, we'd out
Yes,
ourselves if we were holding our phones.
yes.
But I do think that to be engaged is to really put your devices down. I actually have a really interesting, I think my kids are older than yours are, but my kids who are already young adults, they will say to me, because I am also like you, I'm always so curious. One of the things I love to do is that if we have a question in the moment, right? Like I'm going to pick up my phone and I want to Google, write it, and I want to get the answer. And, but as a lot of people, I am so highly distracted and distractible, right? So I pick up my phone going to get the answer to that, but there's a notification on there and there's this and there's that. And by the time I get to Google, sometimes I don't even know what it was that I was trying to.
Yeah, I recognize something.
Yeah. But my kids, one of my daughters especially, she will be like, Mom, put your phone down. Do not do that while we are talking. I'm like, okay, girl, you got it. But it's so funny that she's telling me as opposed to me telling her. And
Yep.
it's a little role
I'm,
reversal
I'm
there.
not yet there, but I'm sure I will get there.
Yeah, there you go. All right. This has just been such a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I think I can't wait to see what your future holds. And we're all going to follow you on LinkedIn so we can see what ventures and adventures you're up to, what you're reading, because I think that is a really interesting piece of this whole thing. I think at this point in my life, you'd have a hard time convincing me to go from a Kindle to a book again. But I'm also older than you are. And so the Kindle, I get to make the print as big as I need it. And I also get to make it as bright as I need it. But I had a birthday recently, and somebody did give me a book. So I actually, for the first time in a very long time, it was a really interesting book. So I think I am actually going to read it. So
Give it a try. My secret sauce, I don't read it in bed. I
yeah,
change chair or couch every
yeah.
night, and I enjoy different angles of the house.
Right. I think that is. And also too, the really for those of us who have partners that we sleep with, it's the Kindle is awesome because I can put it on night mode and it doesn't bother my husband and I don't have to have a light on it. There is that, but you're right. There is certainly a place for reading a book. So you've inspired me and I'm going to give that a shot. Thank you so much for listening. This is Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom with me, your host, Kim Miller-Hershon. We've been talking to Giorgio Natali, and this has just been such a great conversation. So thank you so much. And listeners, if you like this conversation, share it with somebody that you like. We would subscribe. We love that. This is the place where cliches come to retire and fresh thinking we inspire. Go out there and be a better human.
Thanks.
Cliches retire, we set them free. Shaking the ground with epiphany. Fresh thinking loud, it's our decree. Unconventional wisdom dancing on the beat.